So it's really
God.
interesting that we're talking about flowers because, of course, the topic is fairies, and
Hmm.
flowers and colors are frequencies the same as the fairies, right? I
Yeah.
made a bunch of notes earlier on this evening, and I've been listening to various resources about the Fae, as they're known, and I'm intrigued and excited to have a conversation with you. Um,
Yeah.
if anybody's watching this video, then I just want to say that Anna is a remarkable shamanic worker, light worker, healer, amongst many other gifts that you have. And we have a special connection, and I'm really glad to be talking to you right now.
Thank you.
I am just going to throw out a few ideas about the Devic Realm or the Faeries. I know that you wanted to speak specifically about crystals and their relation to, connecting with the fairy of the crystals. But in my experience, I've been working consciously with the Devic Realm or the Faeries for many, many years, and I've learned to have a great respect for them because they can be playful and naughty and hide things, right? Um, but what's your experience?
Um,
How did you get introduced to the idea of the fairies or the Devic
my
Realm?
father, my father. When I was really little, well, I grew up in New York City, but I didn't grow up in what people think of as New York City. Even though I grew up in Manhattan, I grew up in an area of northern Manhattan, the northernmost part, called Inwood. And it's actually it was, if you ever go there, there's a place there that marks the spot where the local tribe sold for some wampum, sold Manhattan Island to the Dutch.
Oh,
And because the Dutch were the first settlers of New York City, you know, first white
I
settlers.
have heard that. I forgot.
Yeah, that and it's why like in Lower Manhattan you see like all these Dutch names of streets. And where I grew up, there was like a street called Dykeman, Dyck,
Very
Dykeman.
Dutch.
Yes, and there was a farmhouse there, an old farmhouse called the Dykeman House that you could visit. It was an old Dutch farmhouse, and the architecture was totally Dutch. Um, so it was, and all the street names were, not all, but many of the street names in my neighborhood were Dutch. So it's a very interesting neighborhood. And but the thing that and also close to where I grew up were the cloisters, which some people know who've been to New York. It's there's a park called there, that whole area is full of parks. There's a park there called Fort Tryon Park, which was very important in the Revolution. And in the park is this place called the Cloisters, which I think like one of the Rockefellers, one of these creepy families, you
Yeah.
know, brought uh, a, uh, a monastery over, and I
Wow.
believe that it's from Catalunya.
Oh, wow.
Uh, I know it's from Spain. I think it's from Catalunya, or at least part of it is. They brought it like stone by stone,
Yeah.
and you know, re-erected it, and they have like a garden there, like a medieval herb garden, like the monks would use, and it's on a cliff overlooking the Hudson River, with the Palisades on the other side, the Hudson Palisades on the New Jersey side, which are stunningly beautiful, and it's just an absolutely stunning location. And in the cloisters, the Metropolitan Museum of Art houses its medieval art collection, or a big part of it, including the unicorn tapestries.
Oh, how beautiful. I'd love to see
Yeah. So like from the house, the building where I grew up, 'cause it was like a brownstone. If you looked out the front door to the left were the cloisters. and you could see them on top of this big hill. It was a big hill. And then right across the street from my house was a forest.
Beautiful.
I mean, I grew up across the street from a forest
Oh, how perfect.
in New York City, in Manhattan.
Whoa,
And,
that's unheard of.
and so that was my backyard. So I would play there all the time. And, my mom would, there were benches there. My mom would sit out there and I would just run around and play. And I would talk to the trees. I would talk to the rocks.
Yeah.
To me, that was a normal thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, right? And my dad, um, he was a composer, right? And he was a very creative person. He also like would draw and paint. He composed music, um, but he also would tell me stories, and I would say they were channeled. He would tell me this. It was like a series. He turned it into a series, and he would tuck me in bed, and he would tell me the story of the Magic Queen.
That's gorgeous.
And it was um, a magical realm, and it would be entered in one of the trees across the street. There was like a
A fairy door.
and we would and so we would go into the tree. We were going on a shamanic journey, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think my dad, in a way, might have been a shaman without knowing it and without
That makes
ever
sense.
realizing, or having some. I mean, I know I get that from him. I get the psychic stuff from my mother, but the connection with nature from my father. So he would tell me these stories, and he wished he had written them down later, but it was just the fairy realm. We would go into, and there was this magical kingdom, the magic queen. It was, overseen by this queen. She was a fairy queen. And I don't remember, unfortunately, the details of the stories. I was little. Um, but he would just tell me, he would invent these stories, and they were channeled. And that was, I think, how I very naturally connected with nature and the fairy realm and the Devic realm through my father.
I imagine that you've always been a seer into the psychic realm and could always see them. Did you have that clairvoyant vision?
I have it more now.
Yeah.
I'm more claircognizant.
Yes, me
And
too.
clairsentient. My mother was more clairvoyant. She was
Right.
quite clairvoyant, and she had visions. I don't have visions. Well, not necessarily,
Okay.
not the way she did.
I think
Like my
it comes in at different times, doesn't it? You get sometimes, one of those extrasensory perceptions is activated at different times.
on an as needed basis.
Exactly.
If you're
Yes.
lucky. If you're lucky,
Yes.
I know that there's some people who, like, I knew this guy in New York who had, he was extremely clairvoyant, not particularly spiritual, but he was very clairvoyant.
Right.
And after 9/11, he was down there at ground zero, um, like when it was still a fairly fresh experience. And he was with a friend in a car, and he goes, "God, it's so crowded down here." And the friend was like, "What are you talking about? There's nobody here." He's like, he's like, "What do you mean? All these people." Yeah. So
My
he would
friend
just
had
walk.
an office directly across the road from ground zero, and she's an empath
Oh,
and a psychic, and she had to leave because they were all
yeah,
there. Yeah, and she
horrible,
could feel it.
horrible.
It was not pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, no, very, very deeply traumatic for the city.
bless them.
Deeply.
You
Like,
know
just
what I want to do if you are game is I would like to read you the list of words that I made in preparation for talking about the fairies with you, and just see if it sparks anything, right?
sure.
So lost items is the first note that I made, and the idea that fairies kind of can not only help you find lost items, but they actually hide things. from you. You know, there's been so many times when I've gone to look for something, when I've known that I put it there and it's gone,
Oh yeah.
and then it comes back. Have you experienced this?
Oh, a couple of years ago, um, I put my sunglasses in my sunglass case, closed it, put it in the spot in my bedroom where I always kept my sunglasses, you know, put it there. And the next day, I went to get my sunglasses, opened the sunglass case, and they were gone.
Right.
And I had like when I put it in there, even like shaken it, and they were there because it was like one of these automatic habits that you do. And for days, I looked everywhere, but I had remembered putting it there. I looked everywhere. I looked in my purse, my pockets, everything. It wasn't like I had a lot of stuff or a big space for it to have disappeared into, or that I'm messy and disorganized. No, like, or that I would like leave it in the refrigerator. But even so, I like tore the house upside down. Couldn't find it, couldn't find it. A few days later, something told me, shake the thing again. So I picked it up, the case,
Yeah.
shook it, and I heard, opened it up, and there they were.
Wow. In exactly the same place that you'd looked, right?
They were in the case.
Yeah.
Like I mean, the case had been there when I went to get the sunglasses that day. They were gone.
Yeah. So that's
I tore the house, and then a few days later, something said, go check the case again. Picked up the case, shook it, and they were in it. Opened it, they were in it.
there have been times that I've needed money and the fairies have manifested money in my wallet where there wasn't any there. As you know,
I've had that happen, but with my father. My father gave me money twice after he died, but he's not a fairy. Maybe he is.
That's lovely, isn't it? Here's some money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was the fairies. No, it was my dad. From those two situations, it was absolutely my dad. Yeah. Oh, I see Greta.
Greta's just joined us. Maybe she's had a burst of energy. Hey.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. I just wanted to check in and say hi.
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 How you feeling?
I'm good. I'm on the sofa. My mother-in-law had made dinner for us, and then she told us to go rest while she cleans up. So that's nice.
How are you?
But we've been
driving
for, huh?
Are you still jet lagged, or are you over the jet lag?
Oh, I'm over that. But we've been driving for days, so now we're gonna stay here for a few days. So that's nice.
Which city are you in?
Tromsø.
Oh yes, that's where my ex is from.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you guys. I think I can, the view. Here.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Very modern, isn't it, that building there?
Yeah. So she's downtown, and still we have this beautiful view.
Oh, cool.
How are you guys doing?
Go ahead, Anna.
I'm good. Tired. It's just been a very busy week. Like sessions and class and meetings, and yeah, just been like super busy. Yeah, but good.
Yeah, same. Tired, but good. We were having a conversation about fairies. I don't know, have you ever experienced any kind of fairy energy, Greta?
I don't know. Maybe I have, but maybe I don't know that's what it was.
I know that in Norway you have the Nissa, is it? Is that how you say it?
Maybe they're a kind of fairy. Yeah, they're kind of like
little, more like gnomes, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like Christmas gnomes or elves or something like that. Tell me about them, because I've never heard really much about them.
I don't really know a lot about them, but they're like the small people, and they're quite mischievous, I think.
Sounds like them, right? Like,
yeah.
There's so many different types. Like when you get into the fairy realm, there are the elves, the sprites, the undines, we were just saying, Anna grew up opposite a forest. So she was introduced to the fairies by her father that would tell her stories and, take her through a magic door to meet the fairy queen. And, I've had experiences where the fairies have helped me manifest money, or they've hidden things like that weren't there, or that were there and that now they weren't in the exact place that I've left them. So yeah, like your Norwegian Nissa, am I saying it right?
Oh yeah, you're saying it really well.
Oh good.
Yeah,
they're very mischievous sometimes. That's why I think when you work with the fairies on a conscious level, you have to be careful, because if your intentions aren't pure, they can play tricks on you. And they're not all of them are love and light. I would imagine some of them can be very playful. Maybe they are. I don't know.
There's some that are malevolent.
Do you think?
Yeah. I think you have to be careful.
Yeah.
I do think you have to be careful.
Well, to me, I see them as, like the angels of the earth.
Yes.
Like the waterfall fairies and the every animal's guardian, I think, are fairies.
Where's everyone else today, Alexis?
Nobody has joined. So we're just having a conversation about fairies.
That's nice.
Yeah, I love your colors, like beautiful colors this evening, with the green of Anna and your pink.
How's the weather?
Do we have to talk about the weather?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's
okay. I see you in a scarf.
I brought. I go through my closet and I bring all the stuff I don't want and give it to my sisters. And I brought a down jacket to give away, but I've been wearing it since I left, and I'm not giving it away. I'm gonna wear it.
So two interesting things, right? And I'm not sorry to keep bringing it back to the fairies. The weather is totally connected to the fairies or the Devic realms, because our thoughts create the weather. And who creates the weather? The fairies, right? And one other thing, that was number one. The other thing, just here, Greta, you have an eyelash, and if you pick it, you can make a wish to the fairies. There you go. Yeah, blow it and make a wish to the fairies so that it can come true.
Okay.
There you go.
Yay.
I didn't know that you could make a wish to the fairies with eyelashes. That's cool.
It is the same way as when you lose a tooth, they bring you money. You have that.
The tooth fairy.
Tooth fairy, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you both look lovely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was thinking in Iceland, they have a real connection with the fairy realm, big time. It's like actually built into the government, There were laws about like respecting fairy pathways and bridges.
You only have to take a look at Bjork, and you can see that she practically is one, right?
Not practically. I think she is one.
Yeah, I was in a cafe once, a vegan cafe in East London, and there was a woman sat opposite me, and I thought, who's that old woman thinking that she's Bjork, right? Because she was older than I remember Bjork, right? And she was wearing like quite amazing designer clothes. She had bright yellow eyeshadow on, and she looked like Bjork. Right? And then I thought, oh my God, it is Bjork. And I'd just seen her live at the Wilderness Festival, which was amazing. And she wasn't happy to be recognized. She wanted some privacy.
So she wore yellow eyeshadow. Because that's very incognito.
Well, I'm gonna go because we just arrived at my mother-in-law's, so
Okay.
we're gonna spend some time with her. But it was nice to see you both.
Lovely to see you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a lovely.
And thank you. And thank you, Anna, for helping me with my wrist.
Oh, is it better?
It's almost back to normal. And it hurt so much yesterday I couldn't use my arm.
Oh, wow.
So thank you.
I'm very happy. You're so welcome. Oh, that's so exciting. Yay.
All right. See you guys. Lots of love.
Lots of love. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm so glad she popped in.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
You know, as we were talking, I could see your auric field, and you had all of this beautiful pink around you with like blue and some yellow. It was amazing. I only saw it very momentarily. Excuse me, but it was incredible.
Wow. I'm not able to see auras really. I can see light around people, but I'm not able to see colors like that. Oh, that's it. Pink. How nice. Heart-centered stuff. How nice.
Yeah, it comes in and out of focus. The way that I was taught is that you look at the third eye, and then you kind of like let your eyes go soft focus, and then you look to the shoulder and back. This is the third eye. I just see it anyway. You know, I saw it before I was taught, but it comes in. And
I know I think I have blue around me a lot of the times because I'm definitely like a blue ray being, person, creature, thing, whatever I am. Yeah, definitely connected with blue.
Tell me about your necklace.
The others. Oh, this was a gift, a going away gift, and 50th birthday gift. It is, what is the name of this stone? Uh-oh. What is the name of this? It's related to selenite.
Is it celestite? No.
No, it's not celestite. It's what is the name of this? It's I don't know if you can really
It's amazing.
See it? It's a cousin of selenite.
Okay, selenite's cousin.
Hello. But it's got a specific name. Is it Rose of Jericho? No.
Oh, a desert.
Desert rose. Desert rose.
Oh, how cool! I've never seen one like that big.
Since we were talking about roses.
It's
and it's got like it's wrapped with like a gold colored wire, and it's got like a pearl here.
It's so cool.
And it was a really nice going away / birthday gift from a friend. And I don't wear it all the time, but I felt like it kind of went with this whole, look.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's very good for channeling selenite.
Yeah, and this is I feel like it just kind of keeps my aura nice and clear and stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So we were going through the words, right?
Yeah. I've got waterfalls, and how that there are, divas of waterfalls that you can connect with. I know my pronunciation of the word falls is quite different to the American pronunciation, because my partner is always saying falls. He can never understand when I use.
Can't understand? It's all English.
Yeah, right.
It's all English, right?
Fairy ring as well. Like how sometimes you get the ring of mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Now the mushrooms are very connected to the fairies, aren't they?
Yep, for sure.
Why do you
Fairy
think?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I never really thought about that. And it's often like a certain type of mushroom, too, isn't it? It's not just like that. Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen, well, in the United States, I never really, I think it's more of a UK, Britain kind of thing. I know, I mean, of course, I'm sure that the United States has some of them, but when I think of it, I think more of like Britain, fairy rings. I don't know, maybe because your climate is more damp. But when you said fairy rings, it was interesting because the first thing that popped into my head was something different, which was stones, like a ring of
Oh
stones.
yeah, similar, very similar. It's a gateway.
Hmm.
The ring and the ring of stones. It's a gateway, right? It's a
Yeah.
portal.
Hmm. To enter that realm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, the other word that I have written down to trigger my memory is orbs. You know how
Okay.
um, you know when you see orbs, whether they are in a digital photograph or in whatever, through a lens of a camera, or even physically with a naked eye, you could maybe see orbs. I believe, I don't know what you think about this, that they are methods of travel for
Hmm.
spirit beings.
Hmm.
And um, I think that not only the fairies, but other interdimensional beings travel on these orbs. Like it's like a type of Merkaba
Hmm.
vehicle.
Well, look behind you, or you can't look behind you because it's
Yeah,
very. But as I'm seeing that, there, I'm looking at all these orbs in your background.
right.
You know.
And it's interesting when you look in like the Greek church, for instance, in the and of course the Russian Orthodox as well. You have all the icons, and there's interestingly like there's a lot of orbs
Really?
in that iconography when you start to really look.
Really? Oh, how interesting. I don't go to Greek church.
But
Sorry, Grandma.
no, I don't. But I mean, I'm sure you've been
Interesting.
exposed to the iconography at some point.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, in Greece too. I never thought about that there were orbs in there. That's very interesting. Very interesting. And I've seen, like friends take photographs in areas that were very powerful, very powerful earth energies. And those photos are just full of orbs, you know, just full of them. So
Yeah,
yeah, I definitely think that they are vehicles
yeah.
for these interdimensionals. Yeah.
Well, when you were talking about the forest, let me just ask you this. Whenever I've gone into a forest or a wood, I've always felt a really strong feeling of being watched. And it's always like slightly creeped me out, actually. Like I've been a little bit afraid of it, but also known at the same time not to fear it. It's kind of like an awe.
All forests or just certain ones?
All of them.
Really?
Some have a darker energy than others, but I always get a real strong sense of being watched. And I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking it must be the fairies. It must be.
But I wonder, because I've never had any kind of fear in a forest. I feel tremendous love when I'm around trees. Like I just feel like they're family.
Oh, I get what you. I
Like
totally.
I'm very connected to trees. And there
Yes.
was a time a few years ago here in Spain when I was visiting this town, a little town on the Costa Brava, and I went on foot to the sea, which was quite far, and there was a trail to get to it, and I had to pass through like a grove of trees, and there was this one. It was almost like a circle of trees, and as I approached it, all of a sudden my heart opened, and I felt that they were excited to see me, that they were my family, and I started to cry, and I started to hug these trees and like, oh my God, I'm back. It's so good to see. I mean, it was wild. I was like, it's so good to see you again. I've missed you so much. And I
Oh,
just felt like I was loved. And I just sort of stayed in that for as long as I could. I just stayed in that circle and I meditated with them. And I felt this outpouring of unconditional love going both ways. It was a very, very profound experience. I don't know. I'm assuming that the devas of those trees were beings that I knew from
Yeah,
whatever existence you know, um, because they were family. Like that's the word. It was like, this is my family.
that's beautiful.
And so it's very interesting that you say that about a forest, but this also reminded me of a place I went to. There's a place in Malaga called Antequera, and there's a park, the Torcal, and it's it's stone. Okay, it's a park. It's very dry, and it's these stone um, formations.
Mhm.
And I was there once on a new moon night um, in August. It was about actually it was 5 years ago, right around now. And I went with this woman. We drove there, and like the plan was to sort of not camp out all night, but to kind of hunker down and just kind of be there for a while. But as we were like walking through it to the spot where we were gonna sit, I think it was like to watch the full moon or something. Um,
Nice.
I felt I didn't feel great there.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, this was something kind of creepy and weird, and I did feel like I was being watched. And she told me that there were a lot of interdimensional portals there,
Yes.
and I just felt like, it was a very powerful place, super powerful. But I think like if I ever went back, I would like prepare myself better
Yes, I
because I
think.
had some things happen afterwards. Things got weird, and I wonder sometimes if there was a connection. And actually, last summer, like a year ago, again, right around now, interesting. I was back in that area. I didn't go back to that park because you needed a card. I didn't have a car, but I connected with it. But I connected it with it in a different way. Because there are these mounds there. They're ancient
Yeah,
mounds that were temples. There's one that was a temple of the divine feminine.
interesting.
Um, yeah, it was a temple dedicated to and as I went into it, I felt that I was going into the womb, and I felt like whatever was going on for me in that experience was kind of healing me from what had happened
Oh,
back in 2016 because something happened there that wasn't necessarily good.
yes. Like
So that's what I
healing.
say when I say that like the fairy realm is not, there are some of them that are not necessarily benevolent.
Yes. That brought up three things for me when you were talking, and one of them is my experience with my friend Chris Street, who is a druid and teacher of druids, and he was teaching me, my partner, one day on a walk through Trent Park, which is where the real Camelot is said to be, um, in London.
Where is it exactly? In London?
Yes, it's at the end of the Piccadilly line. There's a station called Cockfosters, and
Oh
then
yeah,
take a
remember that.
walk about 10 minutes, and there's this park. And inside the park, there is a beautiful moat. And he was teaching me how to talk to the trees on this really, really long walk. And in the photographs that I took, it's full of orbs. And like he introduced me to the grandma tree, and which has got all of this incredible pink energy in the photographs. And I was just talking about this the other day with this lady who I've just did a short interview with because she's going to be a guest on Sacred Segments. Her name is Barbara Mickle-John Free, and she teaches at the College of Psychic Studies, and she's the Highland Seer. And I saw him on that day with a a crook. What do you call them? A hook or a crook? It's like a
Oh, like a shepherd's thing?
yes,
Like the,
yes, exactly.
uh-huh.
Wow, for some reason I'm seeing you with this kind of staff, and it's like got this kind of hook on it. Anyway, we had this beautiful experience where he was teaching me to talk to the trees, and he talked to me about the rings of the trees. And I've become super conscious now of when there are rings. I would never see them before that, and now I can see. You can see when you look that there are actual rings of trees in different places that hold a very special and significant energy. That are again types of portals.
Yes.
And they all obviously speak to each other, and they are kind of watchers. That was the other thing that I wanted to say. Not only are there watchers being the trees, but there are other dimensional beings, which I'm sure you know of and have heard of, the watchers. And the third thing, let me just go back before I tell you the third thing, to the lady that I was talking to and the hook. And I was relaying that story. So Chris Street, my friend, called me up about 2 weeks later, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but you remember you were saying to me about this hook, this staff. My sister found in this airing cupboard in her house exactly what you described, and it wasn't there before." She said, she's lived in that house for years and it wasn't there.
Oh my God.
It just appeared. And she said, "Do you want it?" And I said, "Yes." So he took a picture of it and he sent it to me. And it's him holding the exact staff that I described and I saw him with. Couldn't believe it. And I was telling the story to this lady who's the Highland seer, Barbara Mickle-John Free, 2 days ago. And she, in her shop where she was talking to me from, showed me this picture of this Egyptian, is it Osiris? I'm not sure if it's Osiris.
I think so, yes.
And showed me what he was carrying in, and it was that. It was one of those.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Explained to me what it was. Amazing, right?
Yes. Well, you have a connection with the Egyptian realm. I think we've talked about that.
She said that to me too.
Yeah.
I think she said it was Imhotep. I made a note of it. I don't remember. Zemtepi. And she used the word Ptah, which I don't know. Horamheb. She said Horamheb.
Say it again.
Horamheb. That I was a general in Egypt, apparently. I don't know.
We were many things. We've been everything, right? We've been many things.
Sure. Here's the third thing that it brought up, the conversation with trees. So this friend of mine from Italy, who was my singing student, very young guy, but very sort of advanced spiritually. He was training with this Italian spiritual teacher for many years. And he took me to the forest one day. It wasn't the forest, it was Richmond Park, in just this wooded area. And he set up energetically this, I don't know what you would call it. It was some kind of force field. He set it up, and the wind was kind of really howling and blustering around us, but within this force field that he set up, which was a kind of like fairy gateway interdimensional place, the wind was not penetrating through those bits. So these leaves and things that were on the ground, they were undisturbed. I couldn't believe it.
You were probably invisible too.
Interesting. And what he was saying to me, he said, "Oh, you're very famous on the other realm." I was laughing because apparently they've heard of me and they know about me. They know all about me. So, and I'm not sure how I feel about that when I hide.
You're famous. I wonder what realm it is. That would be very cool to find out. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I need to do a concert on the other realms.
Yeah. It's so interesting, like the different places, the different spots on the planet where these energies are. I wanted to ask you, I'm sure I've asked you this before and I don't remember. Have you been to Sedona, Arizona?
No, but I really want to go.
I was feeling before when you were talking, I was like, oh, you need to go there. I mean, you'll go nuts there. I mean, talk about like earth energies and power spots and orbs. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. They're not always, again, benevolent. But there's one rock formation in, I think it's Bryce Canyon. Is that the right name? Um, that is, she's called by the Native Americans because they know, obviously, they're so tuned into these different spots. She's known as Spider Grandmother. And when I went there for a week, I did like a personal retreat at this place called Angel Valley, which I found out was where all these people died in a fake sweat lodge ceremony. But anyway, yeah, I figured out that's why I was sort of sent there, was to help clear that energy. But anyway, so this one friend that I met there, she was going into the town because here I was in Sedona, but I wasn't in the town, so I didn't see the town at all. I was in this one place that was like literally in the middle of nowhere. Like, so we went into the town, and then another day she said, I have to take you to see Spider Mother. She called her Spider Mother, but she's really Spider Grandmother. And it's this rock formation. I'll send you a picture of it on, because I have it on my Facebook somewhere. I have to just stick it up. And as we were entering this canyon, I could feel the force field, the boundary of it as we were, because it was a vortex, and I could feel like the as we were going in, and as we passed into it, I felt this unconditional love just coming forth, just pouring through this place. And again, my heart opened and we went to look at her. And I started to talk to her, and I just felt this like unconditional mother love coming from her. I mean, and there are all these like different points there. I didn't see very much of it, unfortunately. I mean, that's maybe in another lifetime, or maybe someday I'll be able to go back. But it's one of the few places in the United States I'd like to go back to or to see again. But there are so many spots in that area that are unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It's really interesting that you're talking about Sedona, because the friend that I mentioned that had the office right opposite Ground Zero. She said to me, you have to go to Sedona. And she told me about an experience where she went recently and it was life-changing for her. And apparently, like, all of these people that she was encountering in cafes and other places that weren't apparently Earth people.
Oh, wow.
She got a lot of guidance on that trip, which caused her to create a whole new life, basically. It changed her life going to Sedona.
Wow.
She received massive.
I would say go there and go to Mount Shasta, which I haven't been to.
It's been calling me.
Because Mount Shasta, is the first chakra of the planet. So
I've also heard it's one of the retreats of the spiritual Great White Brotherhood. The masters of many colors. You know what I mean by white, as in like magic, not white people. Because they're.
Yep. I know.
I know that. I just want to clarify that in case anybody was watching the video.
Yeah, I know when people hear that, they're like, excuse me, what's
Ah,
that? The
yeah, nothing
KKK?
to do with the Ku Klux Klan. No. I'm keen for you to share your crystal connecting with the Devic Realm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted, because I made a bunch of notes that I want to share. Um,
Just before you do, I want to briefly touch on incarnated elementals. And I think I've said to you before that my partner is one. And
oh,
I can always tell
which
whether
realm is he from?
leprechaun.
Interesting.
The ears are a giveaway. So we are obviously, we have the star people, but we also have the elemental incarnates.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've known a lot of fairy people. They're usually like tiny, often female, but not necessarily. Um, I know one here. She's Irish, and she's just
Always.
got so much fairy energy around her. But it's like fiery. She's got all this like sparky
Well,
fire.
I
There.
met this lady who told me about this book that talks about the mating of the fairy realm with the human realm when they crossed over. I've got a note of the name of this book, but it's like an old Irish book in Gaelic, and it apparently tells the story of how the incarnated elementals came to be on the planet, and it was because of the mating of the fairies with the humans that had crossed over to that realm. And then you see them, they're often Irish or Celtic,
Yes,
or
Celtic for sure.
Scandinavian, or Icelandic, or
Yeah, I was always very fascinated by that, especially in my late teens and early 20s. I was very connected to all of that, and to also like the whole, what's it called in Welsh, the Mabinogi. I can't say this word, Mabinogan. It's a Welsh uh, tale.
Yes.
And I would I read all these, I read a lot of things, very kind of obscure stuff for an 18-year-old to be reading, um, all about like, the that realm and the crossing over between the human realm and that. I always found that very, very fascinating. And the whole King Arthur thing, because that ties into it as well. And at that period in my life, and maybe it had something to do with where I grew up, because the connection with the cloisters and the unicorn tapestries, and um, also there was it was very popular, I guess it still is, to go to Renaissance fairs. And there were like all this unicorn stuff and fairy stuff and elf stuff, and I just was so drawn to it. Now less so. Um,
You're more drawn to the celestial stuff now, right?
yeah, yeah.
That makes sense.
But at that point in my life, I was very connected to that. Very much so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely worth talking about this subject. I think the name of that book, and I could have this completely wrong, but it's in my memory that it's something along the lines of Kirnanog or something like that. Kirnanog. I seem to remember something like that because I had it.
Rings a bell.
I could be completely wrong, but
something about that rings a bell, but I don't know. Yeah.
So
yeah, if you want me to share some of these thoughts that I have.
And I'm holding a this whole time that we've been talking, from Australia, which is one of my beautiful favorites. Is, I don't know if you can see that.
Now wait. Tiger eye.
Correct.
Is it? Yes, now I see it. It keeps sort of mixing with your background.
Sorry about that.
I've got my celestial quartz.
Beautiful.
And I want to share this too. Well, actually, I'll bring that out in a minute because I think when I'm
excuse
this
me.
other thing. So I'm just going to share some of what I've learned about the Devic realm, and I think like there's a lot of different information out there with different schools of thought. I'm going to share what I learned and what resonates with me at this point in my life, you know? So, and we were already saying this, like basically the devas are bodies of energy. I mean, this is right, as we all are, right? And Deva, the word Deva means the shining ones in Sanskrit, right?
Beautiful. I'd forgotten that.
Yeah. And many people say that Mother Earth or Gaia is the planetary Deva because it's a living being. So there are like different levels, there are different hierarchies of Devas that I'm gonna get into.
Right.
And the Devas can be the ones who are responsible for looking after different places, as we were saying. Like looking, if you have a garden, there's a Deva of your garden. There's a Deva of a forest. There's a Deva of a mountain, right? So I think when we resonate with the place, you could say that you're resonating with that Deva for whatever reason. Maybe you have karma with the Deva. You know, maybe you've known that Deva or that energy in some, lifetime or some incarnation. Findhorn in Scotland.
Yes, I've always.
Right? That was created by communicating with the Devas. That's how they did it. And they're responsible for maintaining the planet. They have a job. Their job is to maintain the planet. And so I think that's one reason why they're not always so benevolent towards humans, because humans are not always benevolent towards the planet.
Well,
so if they sense that you're up to no good,
right,
they're going to mess with you.
Your intentions have to be pure, right?
Towards the planet or towards whatever they're responsible for. Okay. Like if you throw garbage in your garden or whatever, or if you don't take care of your garden, you're going to, piss the Deva off.
Right.
If you, like people who don't maintain their gardens or their properties and who don't treat it.
I need to go clean my garden. No, no, later.
Yes. And it's good to connect with it. There's a Deva of your house. It's really like the Deva of the earth where your house is. But if you can connect with the Deva of your house, every time I've moved to a new place, I start talking to the Deva of the house.
Well, you see Marie Kondo in The Magic of Tidying Up when she bows down to the spirit of the house. I'm sure.
Oh, really? That's very Japanese, but yes, it's that. For sure. I mean, when you take good care of your home, and I when I lived alone, when I had my own place, I would talk to my house like I would when I would leave for the day. I would talk to it. I would say, "Okay, bye. I'll see you later."
I never leave a hotel room without thanking it. Always.
Yeah. So befriending the Deva of your house is a really good idea, especially if you have pest problems or whatever, enlist their help, get them on your side. Same with your garden. I know someone who has a very large property in upstate New York, and he regularly would make offerings to the Deva. Like he was doing some clearing of his land. And, which is not a bad thing to do. It's sometimes pulling out trees and things is good for the land. It's not, it doesn't have to be destructive, but there was this one bush or something, some shrubbery or whatever, that he just was like, I cannot touch this, because that was the home of the Deva
Ooh.
and all the fairies there. And he got a very, very strong, like, don't you dare, don't you dare, touch this. So he respected it and he left that alone and let it be wild, but he would also like bring it offerings of things. So yeah, because he was like, I'm not gonna mess up, you know,
He's a wise
my yeah, yeah. Um, so we have different types of devas, of course. We have the elemental devas. They're the least evolved, actually. So we have those of earth, air, fire, and water, right? And the earth deva is called are gnomes. Gnomes are earth devas. Air devas are fairies. Fire devas are sylphs, and water devas are nymphs. Um, then there, of course,
salamanders.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Crystal devas as well, which we're going to talk more about. Uh, then there are the earth devas of a specific spot, right? They look after specific spots that we were talking about, like the deva of your house or land. So there's so many of them, and the ways they can communicate could be like a sudden breeze or
Oh,
rush of wind,
wow.
can let you know that they're there, or a ripple in the water. So,
Oh,
for example, an example of that would be after my father died, he was cremated, and he had asked me uh, to scatter his ashes from the George Washington Bridge into the Hudson River, which is illegal, and like we would have been arrested if we tried to do that. But I was living in a neighborhood that is right next to the Hudson River. There's a whole park on the right on the edge of the river that was like nobody was ever there. So I like somebody walking their dog once in a while. So I said to my brother, "This is where we're gonna, put his ashes." And so I did a preliminary uh, walk there to find the right spot, and I just tuned into this whole area, and I wasn't consciously thinking of really that it was connecting with the Davis, but that's exactly what I was doing. And I just asked to be shown where to, put his ashes, where we were gonna that's we didn't scatter them. They were in a biodegradable urn. Everything in it was completely biodegradable, which was great. So as I walked along the river, it was all like rocky and everything. Suddenly there was like a swirl of water and wind on the water in this one spot. And I think there might have also been like something in the trees, like wind in the trees. And I was like, oh, this is the spot. And I just knew it. And I thanked it for showing me. And I made a note of where it was. And that's the spot where we put his ashes.
amazing.
So yeah. Um,
I want to tell you that just before you told that story, I physically saw a um, a diva. It was like it looked like a traditional little being of light. And it was just near, it flew onto your face for a moment there. And
oh,
also towards the end, it reappeared. So it would be interesting when we see this video to go to that section and see if it's in the video for future
okay.
reference.
He was kissing me.
Ah,
I just realized it was a kiss.
how sweet. That's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, that experience was a very magical experience, because after my brother went and took the urn, and because it was slippery, and I was like, you go do that. I'm not doing that part. I did my work. You do yours. So he threw the urn in the river, and
Wow.
it's the Hudson River is an interesting river because it goes upstream. The current goes up. So it actually took it towards the bridge that my dad had wanted to be under, more or less. So
I
we just watched it till it like disappeared and dissolved, and then when it was done, like when it was completely, gone in the water, we turned around, and there on the path, a ways down, watching us silently, was a deer,
Oh, wow.
just watching us, very observant, not afraid, just watching us, and just held our gaze for some moments, and then turned away and disappeared up into the trees.
Oh,
It was amazing.
that's so beautiful. What a
It
blessing.
was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I really feel like when you connect with these energies,
Yes.
it could just bring so much more fulfillment and joy into your life, and when you are respectful and honor them, and
That's the word. Yeah.
yeah, I love that word in general, to honor. I think that for people as well as these beings.
Now that you
So,
mentioned that word, honor, I think that, when you have a little statue of the fairies,
mhm,
that honors them, I think, because you're
sure,
recognizing them, and
yeah.
it helps them.
And another way of honoring them is to really connect with them, and find out what they want. So, I mean, you can channel them. If someone can channel, they can channel
Sure.
these beings.
That's
Or you could use a pendulum and dowse to find out what they want. There are many ways of communicating with them. Um, so, as you said before, devas are also considered angels of the earth, right?
right.
And another way of looking at them is that they are holders of form.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay, so and this, I'd forgotten about this, but when I was getting ready for this talk, I went back and looked at some stuff, and I was like, yes, I remember this. That the high, because I said they're in a hierarchy, right?
Right.
The highest are actually Elohim,
Okay.
okay, and they rule an entire category, okay. For example, they rule like the mineral kingdom. Okay, so there's an Elohim of the mineral kingdom. Okay, so the elementals are at the bottom, the Elohim are the highest, and then between the elementals and the Elohim, as a general category, are the devas. And then within the devas, there are sub devas, general devas, and master devas. Um, and a master deva is divine consciousness, basically, or divine creators, because they are holders of form, so they actually are creators. So if you have quartz, for example, right, there's a master deva for all of the quartz on earth. Okay, then there is a general deva for the quartz from a specific country.
Okay.
Okay, like the United States, Australia, or maybe Europe in general, like a country or continent, like a bigger area.
Yeah.
And then there is a subdeva for a region.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and with subdevas, you can communicate with a subdeva by sitting with this one stone that represents it, right? So if I'm going to communicate with or channel this crystal, I'm communicating with the subdeva. So they're all connected, really, and they're just aspects
Yeah.
of one, of course. But the subdevas are the ones that I would say are the easiest ones for us to connect with and communicate with, as opposed to trying to communicate with the Elohim of all court. Like that's
It would
a
be
little bit more difficult.
large. Yeah.
And like, why?
Yeah.
Why would you really need to do that? I mean, maybe, but it's not really necessary. So,
unless you were trying to bring peace to a
well, yes. Like if you wanted to communicate with the master Deva, then you would need a crystal of the one you were connecting with from each area of the planet.
so it's like a patch cable. You
Yeah.
plug into that realm through
It's a grid.
Deva.
It's
Exactly.
a grid. It's a crystal grid. Yeah.
Yes.
Because and you can work with that to open up a unified crystal grid if that's like the type of work you do. Like there are people who do, grid work, planetary grid work.
Right.
But like unless you're doing that, it makes more sense to just work with a subdeva in one crystal. But yeah, if you are doing planetary healing and feel, called to do that, then yes, you can work with a crystal grid for the planet to bring upon healing, and there are people who do that. And this technology, I believe, came from Lemuria.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yes.
Yeah. So that's like basically what I wanted to share. I did want to give an example. One of my favorite crystals, because it comes from the sea, or from near the sea, is Larimar, which is from the Dominican Republic.
Yes.
And it's the only place in the world where it comes from. And the first piece of Larimar I ever bought was this. I actually bought it in Woodstock, Woodstock, New York. And then when I was in the Dominican Republic, I bought this ring. I don't know if you can see it. The light, yeah. And then this amber and Larimar bracelet.
It so suits you.
I love it. And so I'm very connected with these in a very kind of a funny way. If I go to the beach, they want to come with me.
Oh.
If I don't bring them, they sulk.
I believe you.
They get mad. I mean, not mad, but they're just like, you went to the beach and you didn't take me. Yeah, like they want to go to the beach with me. And I have to remember every time I go to the beach, oh, right, do I have my Larimar with me? They just they want to go in the water. So I wear them if I'm going into the sea, I'll just wear them. And because if I don't, it's like I'm not going to hear the end of it when I get home. Like, you went to the beach, you didn't take me. Like, they get an attitude. I mean, I feel it. I can't. It's not like I hear words, but I just I just know. I'm like, oh, I said this one's gonna be mad.
I've got a little story with Edgar Casey, of course. He predicted the discovery of Larimar, and he wrote about it before it was discovered, and he predicted the year and the region where it would be discovered, of course, the Dominican Republic. And I went to the College of Psychic Studies in London to watch my friend Stuart Pearce, who is a channeler, and he's a master of voice, and he teaches at the College of Psychic Studies. And he mentioned Larimar as the stone for the new age, and it being very important.
Wow. I feel that it very much connects me to the flow.
That makes
to
sense.
like the flow of abundance, to the flow, just to help be in the flow, to be one with the flow.
I've only bought a piece when I was in Holland. I walked into a crystal shop and they had a very cheap piece, and it's usually very expensive, and I bought it. And whenever I connect with it, I feel that it has a sort of childlike, fun energy, and it's so sweet and loving, and it's almost like a little dolphin. And it's known as dolphin stone as well. You know how dolphins play? That's how I see it.
But they're also very wise, right? They're ancient
Right.
and wise, but playful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's that wisdom without any heaviness, because some stones are very like heavy. They're
Right.
intense, Whereas yeah, Larimar is it's very uplifting, it's very joyful, and it's that um and I always feel that it connects me with the sea. Like when I was living in Seville, it was landlocked and I missed the sea so much. Like I need the Mediterranean. I need the sea.
Yeah.
Um, and so when I couldn't get to the sea, and I felt like I needed to connect with it, I would wear Larimar as much as possible.
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
Love that.
It's just very important for me to be
Wow.
um, near the sea, especially the Mediterranean.
I think
There's a
it.
Deva of the Mediterranean,
Oh, I'm sure. Yes. I connected
and
it when I gave a talk about the goddess Venus to the Cypriot government, which was really strange that I found myself in that position. And it was in the temple,
Venus or Aphrodite.
of course. Sorry, I got them confused because they were so
Bad Greek, bad.
bad boy. Yes, it was Aphrodite, of course.
It's I like connecting with both of them, Venus and Aphrodite, because they are the same, but they're not. Like they're aspects of the same thing, but slightly different energy, I find. I don't know.
Aphrodite is more earth based, I would imagine. Is she?
I
What do
don't
you think?
know. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't know.
She's the
Yeah,
goddess
I think so.
of Venus, right? As well as the goddess of love. What I find interesting is Aphrodite is known as the goddess of Venus, right? But Venus is known as the morning star and the goddess of love. So there's definitely a link there, isn't there?
Well, I mean, just historically, Aphrodite in Greek and Venus in Latin, and it was the Romans' interpretation of the Greek because
Oh, I see. So they
okay,
may have been the same being, just described in different ways.
essentially, but I still say that there's a difference. There's a slight difference. It's not just the cultural differences, right? I feel that energetically there's a bit of a difference. But
Venus
I like to call
is
in both of them.
larger to me, like
I think
energetically.
so. Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. And of course, the connection with the planet. Venus has been coming up a lot lately when I do sessions. Like, I've been working with a lot of clients who have connections with the planet Venus. Um, and yeah, just that energy, that Venusian energy has been uh, coming up a lot. It's very
Well, you know, the Ethereal Society, which I was a member of for many years, believe that Jesus was and is a Venusian.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
And then, its connection with Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. And
Uh-huh.
my Venus is in Libra. So I enjoy that connection. I think that that's really nice to have it in its natural place and you know like the I like things to be very harmonious and beautiful. I think that that's very important to me, and like the idea of like getting along and harmony and beauty and all of that. I just think is graciousness. Like I just connect with that energy very deeply, and I think it's beautiful.
I think it's very poignant that it's only us on this Zoom call today, because I don't think that people would have been ready for this. That's my feeling. That's my
Maybe not today, right? Maybe they'll be ready if they watch it when they.
could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, yeah. It's.
I,
I mean, I like you. I think everything is in divine and perfect order.
I
Yeah,
agree with you more. Yes.
yeah. I
Um,
think
it's
so.
interesting that we talked about environmental help and planetary help, and you know, indirectly eco awareness, and their relationship to the Devic realm. Um, I think that it's so simple in terms of asking, you know, we forget how easy it is to connect with these energies, and that all we need to do is ask. Could it be that simple, or am I misguided? What do you think?
I think it's how we ask,
That's a good point.
the intention behind it, the energy behind the request. Because I don't think it's just about asking. I think it's the motivation. Why are you asking? Where is it coming from? If it's coming from a place that's aligned, then yes, I think you will get that. But if it's coming from, for example, ego or fear or lack or whatever, that's a very different energy.
It's a very, very interesting distinction, and important to remember. Yeah, thank you.
Because when we ask, like, we have to, I think if we ask from a place of just kind of, how do I want to say this?
Non-reverence.
No, I want to say it the other way. Like, if we ask from a place of, like, I don't want to say the word abundance. That's not the right word. A place of limitlessness, expansion, but also non-attachment. Okay.
Oh, we should ask for it in this way.
From that space, right? From
Yes.
like it's a preference, but it's not an attachment to the outcome. So like if you
Okay.
could get into that limitless space where you feel that, you know, there are no limits to what is there and available, and and that you too are a limitless being, right? Um and also at the same time you're asking for something, but you're asking for it without an attachment to what you're asking for, right? Or to how it's going to come or when or where. Because I think what blocks so many of us is that we ask and then we keep an attachment to what we've asked for, like, you know, a partner or, you know,
It's
a
like running to
car.
the kitchen when you've ordered a sandwich, going, "Is it ready yet?"
Yeah, exactly. And I also think, like, you know, I wouldn't ask the Devic Realm, for example, for a car.
Okay.
Like, why would you do that? Because a car is going to damage the planet unless it's like
Yeah.
some, you know, fancy
Super duper car.
eco whatever, you know, eco-friendly car. Um, they're not interested in your
No,
desire for a car. Like, they're that's not what they do. But
no.
if you ask for something like, I think, a home, like a home where you will thrive, where, you know, that's like the best environment for you. Um,
Or for healing.
that yeah, a place where you can, for example, do your work, do
Yeah.
your soul's purpose, and take care of the space, right? Because it's like it's give and take, right? You know,
Oh,
um,
two-way street, definitely.
and then not attached to where it's going to be, how it's going to come, right? Then,
Surrender.
like, for example, a sort of an example, my last place in New York wasn't in New York. I felt that I needed to move to this town called Edgewater in New Jersey. It's across the river from Manhattan.
Wow.
So it's and it's there's a very special energy there. There is a vortex there. And it's I loved it, and I knew that I was supposed to go there. That I was supposed that I felt like I was being given an assignment to go there.
I
And
get.
I actually experienced two hurricanes while I was there.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
Where I knew that I was stationed there to help protect the area because I was working with some different technologies about protecting the earth and all of that. So it was like I just knew, like, it was like, no, this is where I'm going to move. And it was a very upscale neighborhood, way over my budget. In fact, I looked at one apartment that was the equivalent of an entire month's salary for me at the time. But what I did was I just was like, no, this is where I'm going to move. And everybody told me I was crazy, including my spiritual teacher. They were all like, you should be more realistic and you should, you know. So I was like, no, I'm going to be living here. Like, this is where I'm moving. There is no other option. I don't see any other place. I just see myself here. And it was true. I could not see myself anywhere else but in this area. So I spent months looking and looking and looking. I visited, you know, apartments that were in my budget that were horrible. I visited $1 million townhouse just to move the energy. I hired a moving truck and a moving company. And a week before the move, they're like, okay, so can you send us the address? I'm like, oh, there isn't an address. They're like, excuse me? I'm like, no, 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 there's no address. Um, they're like, well, you're moving. I said, yes. They're like, you don't know where you're moving to? I said, no. I said, I just know it's in Edgewater. And they thought I was completely insane. Um, and I just had like surrendered it because I asked for my home. I knew that the home was in Edgewater. I asked for a home in Edgewater, and I like was like, it's just gonna come. And so finally, like I had looked at all these different places and nothing really felt right until one day I was on the bus going home. I was supposed to move on the Thursday. That Friday before the Thursday, I'm on the bus, and suddenly one of the places I had seen just came into my head. And I was like, that's the place. That's the place. And it was just within my budget. But it wasn't where I had thought I was going to be. Like it wasn't in, because it's like a long, skinny area. Like it's, I don't know, several miles long. And it was all the way up in a part that I didn't even know existed. And I was like, that's the place. And it just like, I suddenly like dropped in like, that's your home. So I knew, call the landlady now. So I called the landlady and she was like, I'm so glad you called. I was just about to call the other tenant who wanted it. And I was, you know, because I hadn't heard from you and I actually wanted to give it to you, but I hadn't heard from you. I was about to rent it to somebody else. And she goes, but I'd much rather it be you. So the next day I went and signed the lease and called up the moving company. I was like, I've got an address now. And like everybody thought I was insane. Like everyone, all my friends and family, they were like, Anna has just lost it. But, you know, so like literally I was like 5 days before I had to move. I finally had the key and an address. And because the Deva of that place called me.
Beautiful.
The Deva called me and I communicated with it. And it just like this merging of energies, I felt that's what it kind of was. But I also had let go of my expectations or projections of how it should be. And because I ended up in something very different from what I had envisioned or wanted.
Right.
It wasn't perfect, but I had an outdoor space, which is what I wanted.
Yeah.
I had a washer and dryer, which is what I wanted.
Good.
You know, I had a 1-bedroom apartment, which is what I wanted. It was surrounded by trees, and which is what I wanted. It was in the neighborhood that I wanted.
That's incredible. A similar thing happened to me when I was living in the ballroom in a mansion.
You're living where?
My apartment was the ballroom in a mansion.
Oh.
It used to be the ballroom in a mansion, and then the developer turned it into apartments, and it was out of the budget, and we were going to see it on the way, and the estate agent took me to the flat, and we stopped there, and I was like, this is the place. And it was out of my budget, but and I didn't have the paperwork right, I didn't have all of the things, but somehow I just knew, and it spoke to me, and I ended up running a group which was supposed to be for 6 weeks, but it was 26 weeks, and it grew and grew and grew in my living room, and it was an incredible space that facilitated me to do a lot of group work and healing there. And before I left that place, I met my partner now. I split with my previous partner, in that place and met my partner who was traveling the world in that place. And the tree that was there spoke to me. It was a beautiful cedar tree, and it said, I brought you here. And it said, I brought you here to help teach people. And it was working with me, believe it or not, this tree, this cedar tree.
Of course.
And yeah, like you say.
That's what I mean. Like when you're aligned with your purpose and your intention is pure, and coming from the right place and not coming from fear or ego, negative ego, lack and so on, then you will get it. You'll get it. It might not be what you expect or how you see it, but you'll get it. And it will be right for that time, forever, for however long it is.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I kind of wish that it had lasted, but it had its issues like everywhere. Nowhere is perfect, but we shift, right?
Right.
We shift and we fluctuate, and we are at the place where we need to be at that particular time for that particular lesson. And then grow.
The apartment I was in had an issue. When I moved in, it was a house, and I was in the ground floor, and there was another apartment upstairs. It was like really nice, very expensive. And when I moved in, there was nobody living there. So for 2 months, I was in this house. It was quiet, it was beautiful. And then my landlady says, "Oh, you're going to get new neighbors." I'm like, "Oh, great." She goes, "Yeah, it's a Turkish doctor." I'm like, "Oh." I'm thinking, "Oh, was he single?" Oh, no, he was not single. He came with a wife and 4 children.
Wow.
2 of whom were under the age of 4.
So there were terrors.
And they were very religious, so like they didn't they stayed in the house, and literally like they didn't go to the park, they didn't go to use the backyard because like they thought it was like, I don't know, dirty or so, I don't know what. And the kids would be like just constantly, and my friends and family were like, "How can you stand this?" The noise was really bad, but they were the loveliest people. Turkish people can be so lovely. And they were like my family. Like they would invite me up for, dinner or to break fast during Ramadan. We had a barbecue together. And when we had the hurricane, um, we the whole area was without power for 10 days. We didn't have power for 10 days, and it was cold. Yeah. And, you know, so they're like, we're gonna, they took me with them in the car to like run errands to places where they had electricity so we could buy candles and whatever. And they were like, if you need anything, okay, it wasn't perfect. And everybody was like, how can you stand it? I'm like, because they're lovely. Yes, the kids were making noise. Yes, it drove me crazy, but it was the sound. It was a joyful sound. It was the sound of children playing and laughing and squealing with delight. So I was like, it's not like I'm listening to like, violent television or video games or people screaming at each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all in how you look at it.
So let's encapsulate, shall we, to draw this to a close. Let's bring it all in. What would be your takeaway for working with the Devic Realm, and from this point forward, how would you suggest that one person that's never connected with the fairy realm, and that they are gonna, or even you on a personal level, like how do you want to continue your journey with them?
Well, getting back to the whole crystal thing, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the best ways is through crystals because it's so, the word multifaceted just came in, and this is multifaceted. There's so many ways to work with crystals, and I think maybe one of the most beneficial and productive ways is to connect with the deva of a crystal. And you can do this through meditation. I have the ability, maybe I'm sure plenty of people do if they tried it. I have the ability to channel crystals or channel the deva of the crystals. So I could hold the crystal and call forth the deva of the crystal, and it will speak and give messages. I've done this for people with their crystals. They've asked me to, like, deliver a message for them for their crystals. So you can sit in meditation and then go into your heart center and say, I now call forth the deva or the sub-deva, if you want to say that, whatever, of this crystal. And see what happens, see what happens. I would say you could also do it with trees, right? With certain spots that we were talking about. It's really just a matter of sitting, going into your heart, and just calling forth that deva from a place of love. What? Yeah, from your heart.
And then listening.
And listening. And see what happens. And I think if you've never done it before, you might want to express that your intentions are pure, right? That you're not out like for selfish gain or anything. That your intentions are honorable. There's that word again, right? And to approach them with respect. I think that's very important. Yeah, and listen. See, I mean, there's so many different ways you can channel. You can do it with automatic writing. You can try voice channeling, or just listening. I mean, it works differently for different people. But it's if you approach it with a pure heart and a sincere desire to make that connection for the greater good, I think, of the planet, right? Not just for yourself. I think you'll find them very responsive.
Thank you. My question is, do you feel it's important to do some kind of like protective practice before you do that?
Well, I always do a protective practice before channeling of any sort.
Right.
Always.
So to a novice that's maybe listening to this recording and that wanted to do this kind of work, what would you suggest as a protection?
There are a lot of different ones, but a simple one that people could do is to call forth Archangel Michael and ask for a dome of protection to be placed around it. It could be seen as a cosmic blue dome or a golden dome or golden blue dome. It both work. You could always do the simple white light thing, but I personally prefer calling in that. Then there are other types of protection. There's something called the triple grid protection.
Yes.
That one is a good one to invoke. Then there's also a torsion field.
Would you mind? I love the triple grid protection, and I've only done it, a bunch of times, but it's been a while. It's been a long time since I've done it.
The triple grid protection you can actually infuse into a crystal.
Interesting. Would you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I don't have the wording of it in front of me because
Yes.
it's a specific wording. But I was taught this a couple of years ago, and it served me very well because I was actually under psychic attack, and
It works,
a-
right? Very
it
powerful.
does work because yeah, because I got through a very difficult time, and now when I invoke it, because I did it so many times, the long version where I read the whole thing out,
Yes.
which I don't have in front of me right now. I don't
Alchemical
have it
Mad,
memorized.
right?
What? Sorry?
Alchemical Mage or Mage, Mage,
That
is the website. Alchemical MA.
not it's not from that. The one that I've used is not from that. I forget it.
Okay.
Something synthesis,
Okay.
energetic synthesis maybe
Interesting.
.com.
Because
I
the
don't.
original one was removed and then they made it much more complex, and I
Hmm.
always liked the original one. So what?
What I do to do a short form, it once you've done the long version, it's kind of in you already, right? It's been
Yeah.
sort of programmed into you. So I just say, um, so the short version, if it's the individual grid, because it's the individual grid and then the space grid, you could do it for a
Yes.
space like a
Or
place,
for
right?
a person, or
Right. I just say Legions of Michael, grid level 1, spherical, my fields, activate. Grace Elohim, grid level 2, spherical, my fields, please activate. Circle security, grid level 3, spherical, my fields, please activate. And it's done. And I feel it as I say it.
beautiful,
That's many times.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And of course, you could just say a simple prayer, right, from your heart, and the purity of your intention would be enough, right? And like you say, it's just intention. Sometimes,
Right. Yeah, yeah, but I think when working with other dimensions, there's always the risk of like a fourth dimensional being getting in, or a being that's not of the light coming through and being an imposter. So I really I intention is good, but I would do more.
I'm really glad that you said that. I'm really glad that you said that because it's important. So thank you for making that distinction.
It's one of the things I teach, right? Is spiritual protection and
Yeah.
um, you know, how to psychic protection, psychic self-defense.
When people
Um,
when people are not familiar with that work, and it's the stuff that you're talking about is heavy duty, it's high frequency, it's like it's the big stuff, right? It's not like your basic.
but I think everyone should do it, you know? I think I think it's really part of ascension. It's part of spiritual growth because you learn to set boundaries and to claim your sovereignty and to say, okay, you can come in, you can't, because you're in control of your own energy, which is extremely empowering, as opposed because especially if you're an empath, right? Like we are, you all this stuff can come in, but when you set up boundaries, very firm boundaries, and you become like the gatekeeper or the bouncer at the club, right? Yeah, you can come in. Sorry, take a hike, right? It's very empowering, and you also can learn to distinguish between energies that are beneficial and not, and so on. So I think like when you're channeling or connecting with anything, it's very important to be in that space of being very empowered, very in control of your own energies. I I mean this is kind of another topic, but I think it's important to touch on channeling. Um, I think the biggest mistake that people make when they're learning how to channel is that they just let any old thing come through without discernment. They just open themselves up. And this I learned this the hard way, okay? Because I didn't know what I was doing when I started. And all of a sudden, like I know that there were some fourth dimensional beings that were seriously messing with me, and some of them were just mischievous. but like they would send me on wild goose chases, go here and go do and tell me like stupid things, and I remember going like, what, and then I kind of woke up and and had a teacher who taught me how to do it properly. But when you're channeling or working with energies that are outside of yourself, um, if we're talking about duality, right? I think it's very important to have your boundaries and to be very clear about what you're calling into your energy field, so that you're not allowing in anything that is not of the highest light.
Yes.
Right? True light, because there's also false light, right? And there are a lot of imposters. So there are false light beings. There are a lot of Archangel Michaels out there.
Yes. Yes.
Is it really? Are you really talking to Archangel Michael? But
Oh,
that's a whole other topic. That's a topic for another.
I think it's very important to talk about this.
I have a video about this on my YouTube channel, if anybody's interested. Yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Integrated Soul Healing.
Okay.
And I did a 2-part video on spiritual discernment. And I talked about this.
I was going to ask you, how could one that's unversed in these subjects, find. So, okay, spiritual discernment, and your website is called?
Well, my YouTube channel is called Integrated Soul Healing.
Integrated Soul Healing.
Right, which is also the name of like what I do. So if you Google my name, Anna Pavlakis, and Integrated Soul Healing, my website will come up. But in the website is annapavlakisblog.wordpress.com.
Why haven't I subscribed yet? Why do I
don't know.
This? I will do so. I will do so.
Yeah, please subscribe to my channel. Yeah, I haven't been putting things out. I know I have to. It's just something I feel like
timing thing.
I need inspiration,
Yeah, it's a timing thing.
Because sometimes, yeah, a timing thing. Before it was like an equipment thing. I didn't have a computer that could record videos for a while. But now I have what I need, and I don't have an excuse. I need to be doing this.
I know. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for this conversation with you. We always have such incredible calls, don't we?
Yes. Oh, and before we go, I have to share this crystal deva. I don't know if you can see
the other one that you're wearing, but tell me
about. Well, both of them were very. I didn't think about this consciously when I put them on for today, but both of these rings were waiting for me. This ring I saw the first time I came to Barcelona in a jewelry store, and it's a kunzite.
I love kunzite.
Hard to find, right? It was expensive.
Rare.
And it's very rare, and my fingers have a kind of a weird size, so it's hard for me to find rings that fit. And I went into the store, I saw this ring, it was one of a kind, and I put it on, and it fit me perfectly, and I was buzzing all over. And I was like, ooh, this ring is mine, but it was expensive, and I was just like, So months later, I was back in Barcelona, and with the same friend that I had gone into the store with before, we were passing the same store, and I was like, oh, that ring's still there. I went in, not only was it still there, it was a bit cheaper. It was also my 50th birthday, and I was like, you know what? I deserve a gift.
Yes.
So I bought it, and I've been wearing it ever since. And then this one is a new friend. This was actually given to me as part of a payment for a session by a woman who makes jewelry. And I had seen this a couple months ago at they were selling their jewelry at a market, and it's hard for me to find rings, especially in Spain where everybody's got these tiny little fingers. I put it on, it fit me perfectly, and I was very drawn to it. It's a citrine, and I don't have any citrine. This is the only thing. And I just felt very drawn to it, but I didn't buy it. I was like, I shouldn't be spending the money. And I thought about it a lot. I was like, not now. And then she brought it with her as like one of the things I could choose as part of the payment, because we were doing like cash and jewelry. I was with her, I was doing a barter kind of thing. And I put it on. I'm like, it's mine. And she said, there's a rainbow in there. And she says, and it wasn't there when we first got the stone. But after I had originally tried it on, they noticed there was a rainbow in it. And as I put it on, like it started to sparkle, and that was the Deva talking to me, saying, "I'm for you, I'm for you. This is, I'm supposed to be with you." And so, yeah, I feel very connected to it. Very connected to it.
I love that. Similarly, the crystal that I'm wearing that I adore, it's a topaz and a malachite. I actually got it in Spain.
Oh.
And if I would have gone into a store in the UK, I could never find this combination for a start. But something like that would be about £80,
mm-hmm.
60 to £80 at least. Now I got this for €6 in Spain. I could not.
Where? Which city?
Just at a market in Barcelona.
Oh.
It was on the seafront, and he was just like a little market trader. And I was so happy because I had a previous ring that was a topaz, which the sea took from me in Cyprus. And I was diving for about an hour and a half trying to find it because it fell off my finger in the sea. And then in the end, I was like, okay, you wanted it.
That's what happened to me with one of the Moldavite and Herkimer diamond earrings I bought in Sedona. There were these very Moldavite and Herkimer diamond, like I was but tiny little stones in it. And I wore them one day, and one of them fell off my ear at night in the desert.
Wow.
I looked the next morning, but I mean, how do you find something like you don't? And I was like, the earth wanted it back. I mean,
I was gifted 2 really beautiful and expensive Moldavites with other stones. And one was for Christmas, one was for my birthday, different years. And they both fell off me.
Wow.
And, like, obviously I cannot have Moldavites because they speed up your energy. And I'm not supposed to take the quick path. I need to go slow. Right?
Yep.
Sometimes you just got to surrender to what is.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So to a lay person that's never done any protection work or connecting with the Devic realms, what would you say to that person?
First and foremost, to go into your heart, right? Go into your heart space when connecting with them. You can do that just through breath work, right? So, quiet your mind, go into meditation, and then drop your awareness into your heart space. And you can connect with it from there.
You will be guided.
And you can connect, you could do it as a visualization, or just as an intention, connecting your heart with the heart of the crystal, or with whatever you want to, the tree or whatever, but make the connection from the heart. And it's very simple, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be complicated. And just see what happens, if you've never done it before, you might not experience anything right away. Like anything, practice makes perfect, and that's okay.
That was in my list of words, the word patience.
Yes.
So we got to actually say it. Yeah.
Yes.
be
It's very
patient.
important.
We don't always
Yeah, I mean, they're
reveal.
not there at our beck and call, you know? Uh, so that's part of like the honoring and the respect, you know. If they're taking time to pay attention to you, you know, because they've got things to do. They're
And
busy.
humans have not been really a species that have treated the fairy realm well, and that's why they went into hiding, right?
Yes.
Because we haven't really been
Yes.
kind as a species, or loving, or honoring, and
Well, indigenous people have. They know in
yeah,
general. They know how to connect. Um, because they honor, they respect, they don't take it for granted. They don't see it as their right, you know. They see it as a privilege.
yes,
And I think also to approach it that way is you're being given a privilege if they and it, you know, it is possible that the David doesn't want to talk to you.
yeah.
So just accept it and move on, you know, find another one. Like
We can all
maybe
do
that's
something. We can all do something to help the planet as a whole, right? Or help our local area, or help our, neighborhood.
yeah. Right, like if you do want to start connecting with the Devas, then maybe start like doing things to show them your good faith,
Exactly.
right? If you just like go around consuming and throwing things away, whatever, and polluting, why should they talk to you? Like
Exactly.
really, why should they? It's
Yes.
not. We're not entitled. So I think to lose the entitlement to offer something to them, or you know, in good faith, to show that you're coming
Yes.
from good faith,
They like
and
meat
then
and
connect from the
honey.
heart.
Apparently, they love honey. So you could give them a little honey, or a little sweet, boiled sweet in some shiny foil, which they love.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, it's
Mm-hmm.
biodegradable, because they don't want
Yes.
to be polluted. Um,
Right.
yeah, they love little gifts, little treats, and sweet things. A little alcohol
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, like a
Oh
little.
yeah. Oh,
We all
alcohol's a
like,
good offering.
yeah. Well, we're coming to the.
Flower elixirs.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Well, I have the Bach flower remedies, or the Australian bush flower remedies, which I uh, use, and they really do help me. And of course, every time we connect with an essential oil, or a plant, or even just having a herb in the windowsill, some fresh basil, or oregano, these
Yeah.
are plants that have divas around them. So it could be that simple, right? As a beginning point.
Oh, and very important before we go, before picking or cutting, okay, a plant,
Ask permission.
ask permission.
Thank you for that reminder. It is very important. Yes.
Super important.
Anna, thank you. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
it's
It's
so
always such a
lovely.
divine pleasure, really.
It's been wonderful.
Yes.
Nice, good talk about
Love you
something I
so
think.
much. Lots of love to you.
Yeah. Love you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, have a lovely evening. Take
Thank
care.
you. It's gotten dark. Okay, bye.
Bye.